How I would describe my own sound now, I think if people would meet me or listen to Nicky Romero tracks in 2019, I think they would describe it as, well, first of all, melodic, progressive, a lot of vocals, high energy. At the same time, not extremely hard in terms of no crazy kick drums, no distorted kick drums. I think it is a combination of energy, melody, and groove. That's what I would hopefully describe my own sound. And that's also what I'm aiming for to play most of the times. And if you would compare my sound now to maybe 2012, 13, 14, back then it was much easier and much maybe more empty, more simple. At the same time, I feel like there's elements now that missed back then. I think there's more musical depth right now comparing to then. Then it was really, easy melodies with one bass note, like Legacy. And then the first real proof of those songs to me was Novell. It was named after the birth of my tour manager's first son, Hatim. His name was Novell, which inspired me. It was new life. It was a new moment. He became father. That was a really significant, big thing in my life also, because he's always with me. And then it feels like maybe your brother gets a baby, even though I don't have kids myself. But that inspired me to try new things out for some reason. And that was when the first real Nicky Romero solo track with a more of an I would almost say a classical approach to it was born at the same time, and that's why its name was the Novell. And if I would play that piece, if I can play it straight, I don't know, because it's been a while. Really remember that it started with this more of like a more of a that was the fundament of that record. And normally I would pick like one melody and then the whole track was about that melody. But this is just a break melody that was not coming back in the drop whatsoever. It was truly just a musical piece that I wanted, my sound to evolve to. And this would never have fitted in the track in 2014 or 12. But now, because of the inspiration, which was not a track on the radio, it was not a festival with a crazy crowd, but it was the birth of someone's son that was close to me, that inspired me to move on and to create something new. And that in 2016 became the new signature, the new Nicky Romero defined sound, more melody, more advanced melody. Maybe now this is a pretty easy piece to play. A lot of people would see it. This part was just black keys, but it's not so much about the melody that I play at this moment. It's just about the combination between the drop melody and the melody that I play in the breakdowns. It's a different thing. So that was, I think, a new step in my productions. It was more notes. It was more of a combination between a musical part, piano only part, strings only part, and the drop melody. That was really something that defined and that was the most touchable, visible part of my growth in 2016, and that led towards Duality, for example, another record that is just about instruments. If I would have to name one thing that I've learned with making music and producing is I would sometimes focus extremely on one thing in some record, like how did they do this kick drum? How did they do that sound? And sometimes you're zoomed into a small detail so much that you lose track on the entire picture. And that could pull you out of the creative process really easy. If I would listen to a Knife Party track, like Rob Swire is a complete doctor when it comes to sound design. It's a true mistake to think that he would just pull out a kick drum from a sample pack and use it in his tracks. He might be working for months only on that kick drum. Um, that sometimes is something that I have to focus on for myself, see the bigger picture. And as much as I'd like to be doctoring out a kick drum for 2 months, I simply don't have the time to do so with the touring schedule that we have. So I would just have to accept sometimes that things are the way they are, and I can tweak some a little bit, but I cannot always rebuild something from the bottom because that would just simply take too much time for me to make the touring work. And I want to play for my audience, and I want to tour, and I want to visit those countries. So that would be a conflict for me, and something I have to remind myself. Okay, over the years, I produce music. I have 3 studio days this week or 4, and in the past that would have been 6 because I would go to the studio every other day, but I had no touring schedule. I would just play a few shows on Saturday night, drive back with the car. But right now I fly back from Brazil, from La Rock, and it takes 12 hours. If I would go to Las Vegas and I would play in Omnia or Hakazan and do another show in Vancouver, and then, I'm back home, but it takes 4 days. Even though you have amazing shows, that also impacts your music production. So I just have to really remind myself, okay, see the bigger picture. I have amazing friends here at the studio who also work with us on the brand. Sometimes I have to be okay with let them finish something that I started, or have them work on a kick drum a little bit longer and see the entire project. That is something I really learned over the years, and I have to let go. It's also kind of an ego thing when you started everything yourself. I wanted to be in control of every little sound, and now you just have to allow, as your career has changed and you do multiple things, you have a radio show, that sometimes you have to share things with other people and help them and listen to their advice and take their view on using a certain kick drum, and that's all okay. And that's something that I needed to learn along the process. At one side, it's great that there is so much music. At the other side, quality can only be made when there is time, and quality products just require more time and more focus on something. So it really depends on what's better. If you want to have more of something, a mass production, then I think we're in a good time. If you're just in it for, okay, give me less music, but more quality and more attention for every record, then I think maybe 5 years or 10 years ago was better. Is it a good thing? At one side, I think it is, because you get to enjoy more music in a shorter time space. But at the same time, I feel I have to guard myself for quality loss sometimes if I want to keep up with that speed, And that's what caused my burnout in 2013, 14, where I had to cancel shows and where I was not feeling well and I looked like a zombie. And people thought that I was on drugs. Well, I didn't do any of drugs, never have. But I was just exhausted. I couldn't keep up with the pace that people asked me to. People would require a new hit song every now and then, but at the same time I was touring and I couldn't maintain that level. So yeah, it's challenging. I don't think it's a bad thing, but you just have to find your own pace and your own balance in it, and that sometimes takes some time. And now I think in music, where it became so popular, money also comes into place. People want to make money over things, and sometimes you have to accept that a product that causes more revenue is more interesting to people than a song that really fits to the identity of the profile. And again, I think there we need some balance. And you got to sometimes be confident and also fearless to just let the process go of, I want to be original and this is a product that resonates with me without that this track has to have a lot of plays. And an ideal situation is that you would have both. But that's a really like a position to be in sometimes, I feel. It's not natural to have that all the time. The good part is that we have so much music to pick from. You have so much tracks that could inspire you to something new. At the same time, there's also a few things that you have to learn how to deal with it. Like there's so much content all the time that at the same time I feel like I don't know what to pick from. Like there's so much. It's same as you go into a candy store, and you would usually just pick your favorite chocolate or your favorite candy, but now there's a chocolate store that has 1,000 flavors. Sometimes it makes it harder which one to pick, and that's how I feel about music these days. There's so much music to pick from. Like, I would earlier deal, or actually I would deal more with too many tracks in one set list than not enough tracks in a set list. That's what would have happened to me 10 years ago. So if it solves the problem and if it's better, I don't know. I think that's up to you. It's just a different scene. There's so much more to offer now that at the same time, it makes it really hard to pick. Um, so I think the challenge is still there. It's just changed, but the challenge will always be there because I think ultimately that's also what triggers growth. I think the best things that I have in my life now is definitely the number one is making people happy, um, adding something to other people's lives. If I see that people have tattoos with my name, with my real name, of protocol, of songs, that really is something that makes me really happy. The traveling, the opportunity to see things in life. I think I feel very, very um, special being able doing that. There's a better English word for it, but that is something that I really want to highlight. The other side is it really causes a lot of stress. All the jet lags, I am not made for it. Uh, I'm just a guy that really needs his sleep and is really happy if I have my closest around me. But that's actually only a small perk, a small thing to give for all the things that you get back. So I'm totally okay. And the pressure, we can deal with the pressure as long as you have enough sleep and as long as people share love and give something back to see why we do all this, why we travel. And of course, a nice car is nice, a nice house is nice, but what gives you the best feeling is just appreciation by other people. So talking about how much music there is to offer, to make it easy, maybe for the fans that have been supporting us and that are supporting us for so long, we decided to just focus on a certain sound and on an EP called the Redefine EP, where I really aim for this is a sound that I'm comfortable with, and this is something that triggered me, that inspired me over the last year, and this is what I want to present to you guys as the possible new Nicky Romero signature sound. As we heard over the years progressing, I think it's also the first EP where I'm going to cut back on tracks again to trigger myself to do something new with just a limited amount of tracks within one record. As we saw, we went from 24 to 40 to 65, and then records like Harmony or Novell, they have like 130, and then the last one maybe has 170. I want to kind of limit myself again to see how I can make the most out of the sounds and the tracks that I have. And that's something you're going to hear back in the Redefine EP. It's not something that I know already, because probably when I get into the studio in the next few weeks, it's just something that starts within you by listening to a song of someone else or an event in my life that's going to trigger me. So it's not only a surprise for you, but it's only going to be a surprise for me too when it comes out, how it turned out to be, which at the same time is really cool because it's new to all of us.